Hey, and welcome back to another web development video. Today I'm talking about how to get a web developer job with no experience. So for people that want to get into web development but haven't ever done it before and are trying to learn some code on their own, whatever that might be, I'm just going to talk about trying to get into that. And that includes like maybe you're taking classes right now, maybe you're just doing Udemy, whatever it is. If you're trying to go and get that first web developer job, I was talking about how you can get into it. For me, I transitioned companies and roles. So I went from product manager into web developer, and I did that through a coding boot camp. And that's just my background. So that's where I'm coming from this. So to back up, you basically have two options here. You have a transition role where you are doing a little bit of coding work in a job, or you have a full-time pure developer role. A transition role, I think these might be a little less popular. I know a lot less about them, but this type of role, you would do a little bit of coding. You wouldn't do 40 hours a week of coding, maybe you do 10 hours or 20 hours or whatever it is. Also, with transition roles, you can look at that term in another sense. Maybe currently in your job, you're already close to web development. That's great. You're already there. If not, you can try to take the approach to try to get a developer job in your company or a different company by looking for jobs that are close to web development. This is what I did. Now, granted, this is a slower approach, but you'll learn a lot of things along the way. This is a great way to do it if you're like me and have bills to pay and kids to feed and can't necessarily take a bunch of time off of work while you take courses or go to school or whatever it is. So these transition roles, what I'm talking about, are roles that are close to development that don't involve writing code. So there's tons of these roles out there in tech, right? There's PM work and account management and sales and technical support, analyst work, content creation work, basically anything that can get you close to a dev team. If this is the route you want to go, you can get one of those jobs and then start talking to the dev team, start talking about how you can either write more code or transition to a position that has more code in it or is a full-time dev role. So if you're trying to get a full-time pure dev job, you're either going to need to change your current job, right, or change companies. So if you're changing your current jobs, your current job inside of your current company, if you want to go that way, obviously finding those transition roles is one path to go. Otherwise, you got to go and you got to talk to the devs and talk to their management and your management and say, how do I move from here to get that dev role? And they will tell you what openings they might have and what they would expect out of you, and how much you need to know, those types of things. So that's one way to go. If you want to get that dev job and you don't have the ability or position in your company, maybe your company doesn't do any dev work, maybe tons of companies don't have any developers at all, then you got to change companies, something you probably already know. But when you're changing companies, the first thing you want to try to do is try to use your professional network or your social network in general to look for any opportunities. And even if they might not come up with any jobs in that network, you can still probably get in contact with some devs that may be able to help you out with at least some advice, maybe can point you in the direction of some things. And also, just because something's not available now doesn't mean it won't be available in the future. So that's the other thing to think about there. It's a long-term idea that you have there. So don't be afraid basically to reach out to your network there. When you are reaching out to your network and when you are trying to change companies, and if you start interviewing for stuff, you're going to have to basically show your aptitude and that you, one, have a bit of this technical ability or that you can write code, and two, you're going to have a great attitude and show that you're willing to work hard and learn. Now that goes for most jobs, but I think for junior developer positions, specifically I'm talking about web development because that's what I do, you need to show that a little bit more because it's not necessarily an easy job. There are a lot of things that you need to know. So things that you need to know when you go into interviews and when you're trying to apply for jobs, you obviously need to know a language, okay, and you need to know a framework. So you need to know Ruby, and you also need to know Ruby on Rails. So that's a language and a framework. Or you need to know JavaScript, and you need to know some Angular, and then you also need to know a little bit of the terminal. So how to write some commands in there and make things run, stuff like that. And then you need to know a little bit of Git and GitHub. And you don't have to be an expert in any of these things. The better you can be in any single one of these things, the better off you are. But all of those things are extremely hard to learn altogether. It's a lot of different concepts and things to learn inside of there, especially to do in a shorter time period. And especially if you are trying to transition, you probably already currently working. So that's tough, but you can do it. Outside of that, you also need to know some computer science basics, 101 level stuff. You don't need to necessarily be able to teach a class on it, but you definitely should be familiar with them. And then you also are going to need to have a portfolio built, and you're going to need to be able to solve some whiteboard algorithm problems. So whatever language that you know, you're going to need to be able to write down FizzBuzz and answer the question on a whiteboard, as well as common ones, basic ones. You don't have to know every single one. There's a ton of them out there, and when you start learning algorithms, you get into that. They are challenging, difficult first. It gets easier. You just need to spend time doing it. As far as your portfolio goes, it needs to be live, and it needs to be on GitHub. And the cleaner it is, the better. I would suggest using some sort of framework to make it look good. You can try Bootstrap. That way, it's mobile first, and you don't have to worry about things looking good on desktop and mobile. You got to make sure that you're doing that, especially if it's web dev. And then after you've done all that, you need to revamp your resume and show stuff. So show that you have some experience or knowledge of whatever these tools are. Now, when it comes to experience, that's a really hard thing to come by when you're trying to get that first dev job. So you're going to need to build projects and launch them, even if it's just little small things like your portfolio, but you need to have another project launched beside your portfolio unless you have projects inside your portfolio that are launched. But the more things you can get out there on the web launched, better. You're going to need at least 2 of them, but if you can get 3 or 4, that's great. I don't think you need 10, but it definitely depends on the level of them. I'm sure you've seen that advice before. The better project you have, the less of them that you need. So if you can get a couple of framework projects done and out there, that's great. You can look at tutorials on how to launch them. You can even look at tutorials on how to build those projects, but don't just build a project and then add it to your portfolio. I would recommend building a project from, if you're new to this, build a project from a tutorial and then change some stuff around in it. Make it different. At the very least, make it function differently, and then make it look differently too. And then from there, it's definitely okay to say that this was a project built with this technology from this tutorial, but then I changed these things about it. Do not try to pull the wool over other people's eyes on projects that you've built and call them your own. Always tell them that I didn't fully build this on my own. It was a tutorial, but then I changed it. That's what you want to do. Other ways you can get experience, you can build small websites for free for anybody that wants it. Friends, family. If you have any family that does anything in business, small business, you can definitely probably help them out by building little tiny things, even if it's just on Wix or Squarespace or WordPress. Those are all great ways, or great sites that you can build quickly without a lot of language knowledge and get launched easily. So you can at least have some sort of real world experience of taking something and putting it out there on the web. That's not necessarily purely what you're going to be doing as a developer, but it's definitely tangential that will help you. If you have those types of contacts too that already have sites on WordPress or Squarespace or Wix, see if you can't get them to let you do some work on it, whatever that work might be. If you can put that in your resume, that's also a great thing to do. And then anywhere else that you can get that experience or network will also help you. So anything that you can think of to get any sort of experience, you really want to try to just get whatever you can on there. Common ways that other people get experience without doing these kind of real world projects and stuff are going through boot camps. That is a way to get a lot of experience. Now, granted, you're going to come out of that boot camp, you're still going to need to make projects and stuff like that, but you will have a few built from it. And then college, obviously. One last thing to say, if you are trying to get that developer job with no experience, don't give up. It's hard. It's a long road. It's okay if you fail a couple interviews. Everybody will, and everybody does. I definitely have failed my share. And also remember that if you don't have any experience, be humble and know that you are on the bottom of the hiring totem pole. And it's not fun to say that or think that. And that does not mean that you are useless or worthless. And that doesn't mean that you can't make it. Everybody starts at the beginning and at the bottom. But it is very good to know and be aware that you don't have any experience, and that's okay. Own what you don't know. When you go into the interview, just be all about your aptitude. You have some other skills you bring to the table. People will likely recognize that, but definitely go there and be confident and work your way from there. I hope this video has helped you. Don't give up if you're trying. It's a long road. You can definitely do it. But you'll get there eventually. It just might take you a little longer than others. That's okay. Do not compare yourself to others as well. That is something that that people do, and I do all the time. I compare myself to other people and think that I should be doing a little bit better in this and that. But you can do it. So don't give up. And that's really what I want to say at the end of this video. So hopefully you like this video. If you did, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.